Welcome to Pure Yoga for Cyclists. So this is going to be a pre-yoga class, so it's inspired by yoga moves, but it's actually some strength work for before you go on the bike. So this would be advised really the day before you're doing a ride. So it will just help with your strength around your core. So when we talk about core, I'm thinking about the obliques at the side of the waist, I'm thinking about the abdominal strength, back strength, glute strength, hip flexor strength. This basically the space of the torso and just below the pelvis. So this will help you get some power on the bike alongside the strength work that you already do. And like I say, it's going to be more yoga inspired. So I'm just going to warm the spine up a little bit first, but I do also do a spinal articulation video to go along with this group of cycling videos. And I also do a dynamic warm up for you, so you could always take a look at those as well. But I'm just doing a little warm up now, just in case this is the only video that you're choosing to do. So if you come onto your hands and knees, place the heel of the hands under the shoulders, the knees under the hips. Just take a couple of rounds of cat-cow. Now cat-cow is when you drop the belly down towards the floor and you lift the tailbone and you lift the head. And that takes you into extension of the front side of the body and a contraction of the back of the body. And then take it into the other direction. You took the chin into the chest and you took the tailbone down towards the floor to take it into what we call the cat position. Take it in between those two spaces just to warm that spine up a little bit. And then feeling like the breath as you move in and out of the two places. So how we tend to work the breath is the inhale, we lift the head and the bum and we drop the belly down. And the exhale is when we take it into the opposite position, sending the center of the spine to the ceiling and the tailbone tucking down. Move and feel that body, that spine, as it's going in and out of flexion and extension. Maybe have a close of the eyes here just to switch into how the internal body feels for you today. Those spines can get quite tight if you're doing this practice first thing in the morning when you've slept and that connective tissue is quite tight. And when you've done those couple of rounds of cat-cow, maybe just take a little turn towards the right foot, keeping the hips in the center, bring it back through the center, take a turn of the head to the left foot, taking lateral flexion through the spine, just doing that a couple of times on either side. And then from this position, just take the hips up to the ceiling, just bring yourself to a downward facing dog. So this is an A-shaped position. So the hands are still flat, and we're paddling the feet as we arrive up with the hips. Maybe have a little nod and a shake of the head. Just moving the hips a little from side to side. Try and relax through the shoulders. Lift the hips maybe a little higher. And then if you can, just bring those heels to a little bit of stillness. You don't have to have totally straight legs. You don't have to have the heels to the floor. Maybe your knees are slightly bent to protect the lower back. And if that back is arching too much, bend those knees a little more and try and create some straightness through the back. So if those legs are straight but you're rolling the spine, take a slight bend in the knees and try and concentrate on straightening the back. Just hold it here for a couple of breaths. Then just bring yourself forward to a plank position. Let the knees drop down towards the floor, untuck the toes, drop the hips towards the mat. Taking it into an extension of the front side of the body. Just keep those elbows soft. Try not to impinge that lower back. So if you feel like you're pinching in that lower part of the spine, just lift the hips up a little higher and bend the elbows a little more. Just hold it in this position for a couple of breaths. And then bring yourself back onto a kneed position, that tabletop position. Just rock the hips a little from side to side. So that would just be that small little warm up if this is the only practice you're going to do prior to riding. But like I say, you have those other videos to go to if you wish, which will give you more spinal articulation, more dynamic movement. So making sure you're nice and stable, pushing into both feet, pushing into both hands. Then send the weight into your left hand and reach your right arm forward in front of you. Try not to let the chest lift. Try and keep that chest pushing into the back of the body. When you've lifted that right arm, send then the left toes to the back of the mat, putting the weight into the right knee. And then lift those left feet away from the floor. Try not to arch into that lower back. So what we're aiming for is to keep these ribs and hips tethered, belly drawn back towards the spine. Quite often when people lift the back leg, it ends up going into an arch in the back. So feel like you're drawing that belly away from the floor, pushing the left heel back to stretch the back of that calf and Achilles, toes towards the shins, belly drawn away from the mat, and we hold it in a nice, strong, stable position here. Holding it for a couple of breaths. Using the strength of the glutes to lift that left leg rather than that back and that arch of the back coming in. We're trying to keep strong in the center, belly drawn back. One more breath here. Then just let that right hand come to the floor. Bring that left knee out to the side. Then lower that left knee to meet the right. Then lift that left knee back up to hip height. So we're taking a little strength work in the outside of that left hip, using the glute medius to lift that left knee. So just going in and out a few times on this side, making 5 lifts. And then when you get up to your 5th lift, hold it there for a couple of breaths. Squeeze the outside of that left hip. Keep pushing into both hands. And then release that left knee back to meet the right. And then this time bring your weight into your right hand. Reach your left hand forward. When you've found the position of the arm, send the right toes to the back of the mat. Keep pushing into that right hand, stabilize. Then when you feel comfortable to lift that right leg, without that lower back arching, keep that belly drawn back towards the spine. Nice long line from the fingertips to the heel of that right foot. Holding for a few breaths here, really using that glute strength to lift that right leg. So we're working into this space, the space that gets notoriously stretched on a bike, so it can be a weak spot. By drawing those toes of the right foot back to the shins, you feel the stretch down the Achilles and the calves. And we're using strength to flex through those shoulders to lift that left hand up towards the ear. Then bring that left hand down to the floor. Bring your right knee out to the side. Lift and lower 5 times. Release that right leg to the right knee. And then lift. 1 and lower. Lift. 2. Lower. Lift. 3. Lower. Lift. 4. Lower. This time on your 5th lift, hold it just for a couple of breaths. And then release that right knee back to meet the left. Come down onto the forearms. The arms attract like train tracks, widen the fingers. So we're going to take ourselves into a plank position, forearm plank. So stepping both feet back to the back of the mat. So push into the forearms, push that chest cavity into the back of the body. Heels back, crown forward, belly drawn back. So keep engaging through that center of the body. And again, we're squeezing the bum to keep those hips in line, nice and strong, forearm plank. Keep breathing long breaths, holding this plank for a few breaths. Then from this position, we're going to take it into side plank. I'm going to the left first. So just bring that left hand in slightly for a little more support. Roll onto the knife edges of the feet and keep those hips high. So my right foot is in front of my left foot to stabilize. You can either stay here, just raising that right arm, or you can stack both feet. That makes it a little more challenging to hold the pose. Or if you want to raise that right leg, so we use that glute strength to lift that right leg up, hold it for a breath, release it back down to meet the left. 3 more on this side. Raise and lift. And then bring it back down. Remember, you can just be in your side plank if you wish. Lift for the 3rd time. And release back down. Roll back into your full forearm plank. Keeping it nice and strong in the center. Draw that belly back. Holding it for a few breaths. Push those forearms into the mat, that chest cavity away from the floor. Keep engagement through the belly. Then turn that right hand inwards, so we've got a little more support. Roll over onto your right side. So the knife edges of the feet. Remember, one foot can be in front of the other, lifting the left arm, or you can stack both feet one on top of the other if you wish. Making sure you're pushing the hips forward so we get that straight plank, side plank position. Or if you're coming with me, 3 left leg lifts. Lift, hold it for a breath. And lower. 2 more. Lift. And lower. 1 more. Lift. And lower. Come back to forearm plank. Hold it here for a breath. And then come down onto the knees and just give yourself a moment. Maybe just shake out the arms. And we're going to come into another side plank with the knee dropped. So start off in a tabletop position. Turn your left foot off the mat. Bring the weight into the left hand and the left knee. Turning the hips again towards that right side of the mat. So holding this position first. And then I'd like you to just lift that right foot just away from the floor slightly and hold this position here. Right hand on the hip. So you're just holding it to hover for a couple of breaths. Nice, long, easy breaths as you hold this side plank. Obviously slightly different to the last side plank because the hand is grounded rather than a forearm. Then bring that right foot down to the floor. Now come up onto the fingertips of that left hand and then see whether you can push the weight into that left knee as you start to hover those left hands away from the mat. So you have to use that oblique strength to keep that torso slightly lifted. And this is strengthening this area in the center, the oblique muscles. And then see whether you can play between the two. Lifting up the right leg and the right fingertips. Maybe finding a place to hold both away for a couple of seconds. Really challenging on those oblique muscles. Strengthening that center part of the body. So 1 more breath here. Then find yourself back in that tabletop position. Maybe just give those hips a little rock. So what we do on one side, always do on another. So turn your right foot this time off the mat. Send your left toes to the back of the mat. Turn and find that twist to the left side. So hips and shoulders facing the left long edge. Right toes off a little for support. And then find the lift of that left leg just slightly away from the mat, using the outside of that left hip, the glute medius, to lift that left leg. And try and squeeze that space here, just on the outside of the bum cheek. Hold it just for a couple of breaths in this position. And then release that left foot back to the mat. Then come up onto the fingertips of that right hand. So now try and find a hover off the floor with that right hand. Still keeping a nice long line through that body. So breathing long, easy breaths, pushing the weight into that right knee. And then if you can, maybe find a space by lifting both the left foot and keeping the right fingertips away from the mat. A really hard, challenging balance to hold. Keep breathing, long breaths here. If this doesn't feel comfortable, just go between either the hand or the foot And then maybe just finding those few seconds of hovering away with both. And then release the foot and the hand back down. Come back into that tabletop position. Just give the hips a little rock from side to side. And then find your way back to plank first. So stepping both feet back to the back of the mat. Feel that chest cavity pushing back, the belly drawing back. Nice long line from the crown down to the heels. So in plank, we're strengthening the whole body, the back, the front, the bum, the hip flexors, the thighs, all the way up to the shoulders. Now, without moving the hands and feet, start to lift the hips to a downward facing dog. Taking a gaze back towards the toes. Try and create some space between the shoulders. Push into the hands should be shoulder width apart. Push into the feet should be hip width apart. So your next breath in, I'd like you to raise up the right leg. And try not to lift that right hip. So feel like you're using the glutes to lift that leg high. Then bring your right knee towards your right tricep. So just above the right elbow. Hold it there for a breath. Then drop the right knee down towards the right wrist. Just hovering off the mat. Then take that right knee over to the left wrist. Then lift that knee up towards the left tricep. And then send that right leg back up to the ceiling. Then bring that knee into the chest. Take a gaze in between the hands and step your right foot through. If you need to drop that back knee down to bring it through, drop that back knee. And then once you find your foot underneath that right knee, lift that left knee back up again. So come up onto those fingertips and feel the length through the torso. So let the shoulders relax down. Push into your right foot, push into your left toes. Stabilize the feet first. Then raise the arms to the ears. And then just lift the chest slightly away from that thigh, holding the body now in a 45-degree angle. So we're really using this back strength now to keep that body lifted away from that right thigh. Try not to let the shoulders hug the ears. Bring them down, shoulder blades into the back pockets. Your back leg is as straight as you can, so you're feeling a stretch down those Achilles, calves, lower part of the hamstrings. But we're squeezing the upper hamstrings and glutes to keep that back leg nice and straight. You're lifting the arms, so we're using the deltoid muscles. Straightening the arms, we're using the tricep muscles. Strengthening those shoulders for your bike ride. Hold it here just for one more breath. Then bring your right forearm onto your right knee and drop your left heel to the floor. Turn the shoulders and hips to your left side of the mat. And this left hand reaches forward towards the front short edge of the mat. Keep the hips low. So we're stretching the left side of the waist, but we're strengthening that right leg, keeping it bent. Push into that right foot. Then for a couple of breaths, maybe reach out with that right hand, taking it away from that right thigh. Using again the sides of the waist to hold the body. Using those erector spina muscles to keep that body nice and straight. Just hold it for a couple of more breaths here. Then turn the chest, come onto the toes. Release the hands to the floor. Step back to a plank. Shoulders over the heel of the hands. Then lift the hips. Squeeze the heels back to a downward facing dog. Posterior chain stretch at the back of the body. So whatever again we do on the right, we do on the left. Breath in, raise up that left leg. Keep the hips neutral. Squeeze the bum and the upper hamstrings to lift that leg a little higher. Toes of the left foot back towards the shin. Then bring that left knee to the left tricep, just above the elbow. Then drop that knee down towards the left wrist. Bring that left knee over to the right wrist. Bring the left knee up towards the right tricep. And then lift that left leg back up to the ceiling. Try not to raise that left hip. Then bring that knee into the chest. Gaze in between the hands, bring that left foot through. Help it through if you need to. Drop the back knee for a second if you have to. Then bring that back knee off the mat, straighten the back leg, come up onto the fingertips. Straighten the torso, gaze just in front of the mat. Back leg straight, front knees bent. Then when you're ready, raise the arms to the ears. Then just lift that torso slightly away from that left thigh. Relax the shoulders down, lengthen the arms, sink into that left knee. Feel the stretch through the sides of the waist. Feel those erector spinae muscles, those trapezius muscles, those lats, holding the body from the back. Draw the belly back, squeeze the belly button towards the spine, good strong support. Keeping the right leg as straight as we can, stretching the lower leg, the lower hamstrings, but squeezing the upper hamstrings, strengthening around those glutes. Then bring your left forearm onto your left thigh, drop the back heel, turn the chest out to the right side. So we're opening the chest to the right, sinking into the left knee, pushing energetically into the back foot. Reaching forward with the right hand, feeling that stretch down the right side of the body, strengthening that left leg. Then just for a couple of breaths, maybe raise that left hand away. The longer you make both limbs, the more it challenges that center of the body to keep this torso in this 45-degree angle. Really challenging on the obliques. Really recruiting that belly. Every exhale, draw that belly back a little more. Then turn the chest back to the front, come onto the toes of the back foot. Then release those hands down, either side of that left foot, step back to a plank. Hold it in plank position for a couple of breaths. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. So we're going to take some side planks again, but with a slightly different variation. So bend your knees, take your feet over to the left side of the mat. Then straighten through the body, lift the right hand to the ceiling, then send it towards the front of the mat. Hold it for a couple of breaths. Side plank, stabilizing with one foot in front of the other. Then bring that right hand down, bend the knees again, send it up to down dog. Then bend the knees back again, take the heels over to the right, straighten through the body, lift the left hand to the ceiling, then over towards the front of the mat, side stretch and strengthen it. Then bring that left hand back down, bend your knees, send it back to down dog, then bend the knees again, heels over to the left side, knife edge of the foot, straightening through the body, and raise the right hand. Send the right hand to the front of the mat. Hold it there for a breath. Then bring that right hand down. Bend the knees. Straighten the legs, down dog. Bend the knees. Drop the heels to the right. Straighten up through the body and lift that left hand. Then send that left hand forward to the front of the mat. Hold it for a breath. Bring that left hand back down. Go back to bent knees. Then straighten the legs, down dog. Then make your way onto the floor with your bum. Swinging the legs around to the side. Feet to the front of the mat and bums in the centre of the mat. So we're going to do some boats here. So boat is really strengthening for these hip flexors. So all around here. So just keeping the weight in between your sit bones and your lower part of the spine. Find that balancing point here. Take a hold of the creases of the knees, roll the shoulders back. Then raise up one leg, bringing the foot to knee height. Raise up the other leg again to meet the height of the right. Lift up through the chest, relax through the shoulders, lengthen the spine. And then take the hands away if you wish, or keep them there if you feel more stable. And cross the hands over the chest. Breathe in, elongate the spine, and as you take a breath out, draw the belly back and twist the left rib towards the right hip. Breathe in, come back to the center. Breathe out, right rib towards the left hip. Come back to the center. So 2 more times on each side. Your breath out takes the twist. Your breath in comes back to the middle. So we're trying to rotate from the waist, so the right hip towards that left hip. Back to the center. And one more on both sides. Left rib towards the right hip. The shoulders just coming along for the journey. Back to the center. Over to the other side. Right rib to left hip. Back to the center. Take a hold of the knees. Release the feet. Give the knees a hug for a breath. So again, you could have stayed just in your boat, maybe just releasing the hands, or you could have taken the rotation. Really helps with that abdominal strength. So we're now going to find high boat to low boat. If you want to just stay in high boat, releasing the hands, just getting used to boat, feel free to do so. If you're coming with me, find that balancing point again. Take a hold of the knees for a moment. Lift up one leg, lift up the other. Roll the shoulders back, lift up the chest. Holding this space first, releasing the hands. Then we're going to take high boat, low boat for 5. Breathe in, elongate the spine. As you breathe out, low boat, keeping the shoulders and feet away. Breathe in, high boat. Breathe out, low boat. In, high boat. Out, low boat. 2 more times. In, high boat. Down, low boat. In, high boat. Down, low boat. Come back to the center. Take a hold of the knees. Bring the feet to the floor. Give those knees a hug. So if you wanted to work a little more on those hip flexor strengths, you could do 5, 10, 15, whatever works for you. So bringing ourselves now onto our backs. And we're going to be taking bicycle movements with the legs and the arms. So we're bringing the hands behind the back of the head. Now what I would like you to do is think again about these ribs and hips tethering towards each other. The belly being drawn back towards the spine, the lower back at all times being pushed into the mat. So we get that recruitment of the belly. Bring the hands behind the head. Bring the knees up so they're a 90-degree angle from your hips and the feet, toes back to the shins. Raise the shoulders away from the floor. Take a breath in. On your out breath, straighten your right leg and bring your right knee, elbow to the left knee. Breathe in, back to center. Breathe out, left elbow to right knee and straighten the left leg. Back to center. That's 2. 3, all the time pushing that lower spine into the mat. 4, we're taking this to 10. 5, opposite elbow, opposite knee. 6, try not to let that lower back arch. 7, keep pushing it into the floor, belly drawn back. 8, 9, nice slow movements so we really engage those muscles. 10, release the head down, release the feet down. Maybe just give the knees a little rock from side to side. So we're going to take that again for another 10. So stack yourself up, make sure your lower back's pushed in, your belly's drawn back, ribs and hips are tethered, knees come over the hips, hands come by the back of the head.
So remember not to pull on that neck. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, straighten your right leg, right elbow to left knee. Back to the center. Activate those feet. Over, left elbow, right knee. Back to the center. 2, 3, keep that tummy engaged. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Release the feet to the mat, hands to the floor. Maybe just give those knees a little rock from side to side. So making a W with your hands, these thumbs are just going to come to the base of the spine. So we have a little support so our bums don't start to come back and our bellies lift. So that thumb is there to support that lower spine. Bring the knees into the chest. Take a breath in. Send the feet up towards the ceiling. Then as you breathe out, bring them down with straight legs just to hover off the floor. Take a breath in, bring them back into the chest, back up to the ceiling. Breath out, bring them to hover towards the floor. Try not to let that lower back arch. So your breath in brings the feet back to the ceiling, your breath out lowers them towards the mat. Keep that engagement in the center. So we're taking this 10 times water wheel, strengthening that core set. So that's 5. Breathe in, knees to the chest, feet to the ceiling. Breathe out, feet to the floor. Breathe in and breathe out. 2 more, knees to the chest, feet to the ceiling. Breathe out, feet to the floor. 1 more, knees into the chest, up to the ceiling. Breathe out, feet to the floor. Knees then to the chest, and then just take a hold of those knees. Maybe just have a little rock of that body from side to side. So now bringing your feet to the mat. So stacking up as though we're going into a bridge position. Bring your hands onto your hips. This will make it slightly more challenging. If this feels awkward with the elbows lifted away from the floor, maybe just use those elbows for light balancing points. But to challenge it more, you leave those elbows away from the mat. So feet are pointing towards the front of the mat, hip width apart. So just bring yourself into a level bridge. So we're just bringing those hips, so they're not in extension, they're just in a nice long line. And what I'd like you to do is on every exhale, I want you to lift alternate legs. But what I'd like you to try not to do is let the hips drop down, rotate, or lateral flex. The aim is to try and keep that pelvis nice and steady. The gaze stays up towards the ceiling. Elbows away, or if you need a little support as you're trying to work with this through the weeks ahead, feel free to support and then eventually lift the elbows away. So find your way into your left foot. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, straighten that right leg. The knee stays the same as the left. Breathe in, bring it back to the floor. Breathe out, weight into the right leg and you straighten the left leg. Left knee equal to the right. Breathe in, bring it back to the floor. Get your weight into your left foot and you straighten your right leg. All the time keeping that pelvis nice and steady. Weight into your right foot, breathe out, lengthen the left leg. Try not to let the hips drop. So that's 6. 4 more, 2 on each side. Breathe in, weight into the left foot, straighten the right leg. Breathe in, bring it back to the mat. Breathe out, lengthen the left leg, left knee stays level. Bring it back to me. Try and keep the feet placed back where they came from. 1 more on each side. Release that right leg. Push into the right foot. Same on the left. And that is your last one. Slowly bring the hips back down to the mat. So if you've found you've had lateral flexion, rotation, or dropped the hips, start to stabilize for a few more times and then try and work at bringing the elbows away. Really strong work on the glutes, which is what we're trying to strengthen because we're very weak in that space when you spend a lot of hours on the bike. So the next one we're doing is we're taking our figure 4 bridge lift. Bring your outside of your right ankle onto the top of your left thigh and try and turn that right knee out. Weight comes into your left foot. So we're going to go on the inhale, lift, on your exhale, lower to hover. And we're going to do this 5 times, trying to keep the hips neutral, the hands on the hips, elbows away if you can. Right toes back to the shins, right knee turned out. Supported through that left foot and the shoulder blades. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Next breath in, push into that left foot, raise those hips. Breath out, bring the hips just to a hover. 4 more, breathe in, lift those hips. Really working those glutes on that left side. Try not to let that right hip drop down. Breathe in, lift, breathe out to hover. 2 more times, breathe in and lift. Breathe out to hover. 1 more time, breathe in, lift, breathe out, and this time release to the mat. Swap legs. Right foot is now your standing base foot. Left foot comes onto the top of your right thigh. Stabilize that right foot into the mat. Turn the left knee out, left toes back to the shins. Hands on hips, elbows away, or a support if you need them. Take a breath in, push into the right foot and lift. Breath out, come to a hover. Breath in, lift. Really squeeze that glute and that hamstring. Breath out to hover. Breath in, lift. Breath out to hover. Try and find that stable, level pelvis. Breath in, lift. Breath out to hover. 1 more time, breath in, lift. And breath out. And bring both feet back down towards the floor. Bring the knees in towards the chest. Squeeze those knees tight. Keep the lower spine on the mat, the shoulders plugged into the floor to create some space along the chest. And then bring those elbows to the inside of the knees. Take a hold of either the shins, the ankles, or the outside of the feet. Try and stack the heels of the feet over the knees and bring those knees as close as you can in towards the armpits and the thighs towards the outside of those ribs. Squeeze it just for a couple more breaths. So this is coming to the end of the practice. So you can either choose just to come to laying down on the mat and just taking a few moments just there. Natural breathing, so the feet come to the ends, the hands come to the sides, and just take a couple of moments just to consolidate what you've done in that strength practice, knowing you've worked all these corset muscles, front and back of the body, those hip flexors, you've worked those glutes. Everything should be strengthened, ready for your ride. Ready to bring some steadiness on the bike. The more you've got core strength, the better you hold yourself for longer times on the bike, longer miles. Also, the more strength you've got in those waists, the lack of rock you'll get on the bike. You'll be able to stabilize more in that space. When you've taken a couple of breaths just laying on the mat, make your way into a seated position, bringing the knees into the chest, rocking, maybe up and down that spine a couple of times, just massaging those erector spine muscles, and then make your way into a seat and just take a moment, just notice how the body feels. Notice whether you feel like you've created a little bit of strength in this center, knowing that if you continue with this practice every sort of day before you go on a bike, you'll find a lot more strength in these spaces. So thank you very much for practicing with me. I hope this works and helps you in your pre-ride yoga session for cycling. Have a great day. Take care.